Hey everyone, welcome back to the Board Game Spotlight. Today we're going to look at Black Rose Wars, a game for 2 to 4 players, and it plays in about 90 to 120 minutes. So let's take it to the table, and I'm going to tell you about it. So in Black Rose Wars, players are going to play as mages who are trying to become the Grand Master. You're going to do that by accumulating power points along this track. You're going to select a hero or a mage. So here we have Nero. And in the game, there are 3 others. We have Tessa, Rebecca, and Telmia. So those are the 3 others that you can play as. So what you're going to do is this is a deck building arena combat style game. There are 6 schools of magic that players are going to attempt to control. You're going to deal damage on this board, and it's very vibrant. Very colorful, but this room's reference card is fantastic. It really allows you to follow what every room does and allows players to know if they're trying to accomplish a certain objective or a quest. So Black Rose Wars has a ton of nuanced strategy. I'm not going to deep dive into the rules. I want to give you a quick down and dirty game turn on how Black Rose Wars plays and what you can expect from it. What you can expect are these crazy epic miniatures. These are evocations that players can control. To begin the game, players are going to select their hero and you're going to select your magic school. So there are 6 to choose from, and these cards lay out exactly which 6 cards to take when you make that choice. Now, each player can only select one school. So once destruction is gone, no other player can choose that as their starting school. So if we chose destruction, we would take the 6 cards that are labeled on that board, and this would become our grimoire. Now, grimoire is just a fancy word for your draw deck, and memories is a fancy word for your discard pile. After each player has their magic school, then you're going to go into your quests. So each player is going to draw a quest from the first moon, and we don't change moons until a player or the Black Rose PowerPoint track meets 6, 18, and then the game ends at 30. So we're in the first moon phase. We draw a first moon quest. It wants us to activate the Biblioteca, and instead of its normal power, it's going to give us an additional power. So this is our quest that we are trying to accomplish. Additionally, at the beginning of each round, the last player is going to activate an event. The Black Rose is going to gain points equal to the bottom left. Then it tells you where to place the card on the event track, so it goes into the first space. And then when it's finally discarded, the Black Rose is going to gain a point. So we're going to give the Black Rose 2 points. This event is in effect until it's discarded. And this deck will change with the moon phases. So you'll change out the quest deck and the event deck when you enter into new moon phases. So once you've gone through your Black Rose phase with your event, you're then going to go into your study phase. Now during the study phase, this is where we get to deck build. This is when we get to add strategies, find combinations and different synergies. So we're going to draw 2 cards off the top of our grimoire, and this is going to make up our starting hand for this turn. Then we're going to choose to draw 4 cards from the 6 magic schools. Now, you can do this in any combination you want. You can draw 4 from 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 3 and 1, 2 and 2. You get to choose how you build it up. And each of these magic schools has a certain strength and definitely weaknesses. So during your study phase, let's go ahead and draw 2 from divination, and we'll draw 2 from illusion. Now among these 4 cards, we're then going to choose to keep 2 of these. 2 of these are going to go into our hand. The other 2 are going to get discarded. These icons on the far left are going to tell you what type of spell you have. So this is a protection spell, the shield. These orbs are contingencies which allow you to summon and gain power. You have lightning bolts down here, which are combat cards, and then you have traps which when you play a trap or a protection spell to your spell board, you're going to ready that spell, and then when it's activated, so when a player meets the requirements of your spell, you're then going to reveal it and take its effect. So let's go ahead and start by taking the arcane mark, and let's take the shadow step. So those 2 cards would go into our hand. So we have 4 cards for the turn. And once all players have gone through their study phase, then we go into the preparation phase. So during the preparation phase, this is the action programming of the game. We're going to take the 4 cards we drew in the study step. We're going to program them into our player board, and then they're going to be activated on our turn. So you have a quick spell, which can be played outside of your typical programming. Then you have spells 1, 2, and 3. In order to cast spells 2 or 3, you have to cast the spell previous. So it makes a difference where you place those spells. So if we wanted to play our shadow step into our quick spell, this is going to allow us to move into the target room. Again, this is going to, the asterisk is anywhere on the board. Then you have, these are models, a single target model anywhere on the board. And then you have hexes. So this is 1 space away from our current location. You have line of sight, which means that you have to be able to see in a straight line distance. We could see straight line here or here. We cannot see into this location from our current location. And then you'll also notice that these spells are multi-use. So not only does it matter where you place them on your player board, it also matters in what orientation. So essentially what you'll do is you'll choose the side of the spell that you want to use. You'll then place it so it reads active side here. So then when it's flipped, you flip it bottom to top, and this is the spell that you will activate. So as we place these spells into our board, you have to play a minimum of 2 spells, but you may play a maximum of 4. So you can play 4 of the spells. You can play all the spells you drew in the turn. We have a hand limit of 7, and there are boards out here that are going to allow us to draw cards. So once all players have finished the preparation step, you're then going to move into the action phase. And this is where Black Rose Wars gets crazy. During the action step, this is when all players are going to start to activate their spells, or they're going to be able to activate these action tokens. There are a lot of options in how you can use your actions. You can either do 1 action on your turn or 2 actions on your turn. The only stipulation, the only thing you cannot do is you cannot activate 2 back-to-back standard spells. You could, however, activate an action. You could activate an action. You could activate an action quick spell, an action standard spell, or a quick spell standard spell. So the only thing you can't do is standard spell, standard spell. So you have a lot of options available to you, and your quest will typically give you an idea of what you want to go for during that round, because quests are worth points at the end of the game. They will award you with power points when completed, and so you do want to attempt to complete as many quests as possible. But you also want to destroy your opponents. There are a lot of ways you can do that. You can summon creatures. Now these evocations are going to come under your control, and each of these cards will show you their movement range, their strength, and their health levels. Now Andromeda, she's not your typical evocation. She's going to allow you to activate rooms, which is not typically possible during the evocation step, so that's important. Then you just have these monsters. You have Melakota and your superior undead, Cerbero undead, and then we just talked about Andromeda, and this is Chrono, and he is a beast. So you're going to be able to summon these creatures on the board by going to the cemetery or by going into the summoner room. You can summon Andromeda from the illusion deck. So during the action phase, what we could do is we could move, and we'll flip this over to show that we've used it. So we could move twice. Let's just move once. We'll go to the cemetery. and we'll activate the cemetery. So it is no longer active for this turn unless someone were to play a card that would break that rule. But what we would do is we would take an undead miniature, it would get summoned into our current location, and we would take one of our roses and we would place it inside the base to show that it's under our control, and we take the card that goes with that miniature and we place it in our player board to show that that's our first evocation we control. So if we were to get a second or a third undead, we can keep track based on the number of rose petals in that miniature. So that is the way that you can track that. We could then activate this again as a second action, and we could move twice and go to the pleasures room. The pleasures room is going to allow us to draw a quest. Now you can only have 2 quests in your hand at any time. If you have 0 quests in your hand at the beginning of the round, you can draw one from the current quest deck. So that's our turn. We have activated 2 actions. We would end our turn and it would go to the next player in clockwise order. Let's talk about damage and how you defeat characters. If this mage was in the summoner room, we could play our first spell in order to fireball. They are 1 tile away. We would inflict 3 damage to all models in that room. So even if there were evocations under that player or other players, so all models in that room get 3 damage. And this is an instability token. Now, as mages cast spells in the lodge, we're going to start adding instability to the tiles. And you'll see that each of these tiles has a number of spaces for instability. So the tile that you cast the spell out of would gain 1 black rose instability. And some of these cards are going to allow you to place your own instability markers, which are your player colors, into these rooms. And this makes a difference because you want to claim these tokens for in-game scoring. So you do want to destroy rooms, and as a room gets destroyed, you would gain the token and you would flip it over. And what happens is that you can no longer activate the forge for its ability. You can no longer place instability tokens there, but you can move through it. You can still fight in that location. So after all players have had a chance to play cards and use their spells, you would then go into your evocation phase. So your evocation phase is going to be using your evocations for their abilities. So our undead warrior moves twice, and he has power of 2. So we would deal 2 damage to this mage. So we would give 2 of our colored markers to that mage, and they would place it in their health track. When a mage is defeated, you gain their trophy, and that is worth victory points at the end. And then whoever has the most player cubes on that player would gain victory points. So first place gains a number of victory points, then second, and then even just getting a damage on a player is going to award you with a power point. And so you do want to deal damage to as many mages as possible, but you want to end up coming out on top as being the one that dealt the most damage to that mage in order to score the most power points. And again, power points are tracked here. So after your evocation step, after all players have had a chance to use their evocations on the battlefield and use those, you would move into the cleanup phase. Now I do want to mention that there is some push your luck in utilizing these evocations, because when you activate a room, it's typically no longer available unless you were to use something like the mirror room, which lets you copy a room, or a card from your spells. So utilizing these summoning effects as late as possible in the round is important, because the longer these evocations are on the battlefield, the easier it's going to be for them to die. And you want to leave these on the battlefield as long as possible in order to deal damage to everyone. So after the evocation step, you're going to move into your cleanup phase. During the cleanup phase, you're going to discard all of the spells that you played from your active tableau, and these are going to become your memories or your discard pile. You can, however, leave spells that you've readied. So if you have a trap or a protection spell that you've played down and it hasn't been activated yet, you can leave it there Then you're going to flip over the activation tiles that were used. You'll flip them back over for the next round. Then you would check for room instability. And again, a room is unstable when it meets its level. So if the forge was unstable, we would flip it. The player that had the most cubes on that room would gain this token, which is worth victory points at the end of the game. And then you would flip the room over, indicating that it has been destroyed. Then you're going to check to see if anybody has reached 30, and that's when that game ends. I also wanted to mention that when a player is defeated, when a mage is defeated, they go... I also forgot to mention that when a mage is defeated, they go back to their study. That is the only way that a player can move back to their study, and the way that you get out of your study is that you have to play an activation token to move, or you can discard one of your ready spells from your tableau and discard it. And you can do that actually any time on your turn. If you feel like you need to move further, or if you need to move faster around the board, you can actually discard a spell you've played to move a step. You won't be able to activate a room or do anything else, but it is going to allow you to move and maybe get you out of range of an enemy. So after the cleanup phase, you're going to go right back into the game turns. These phases are going to continue again until a player reaches level 30. You'll go through different moon phase quests. You'll go through different events. The events get stronger. The quests get harder to complete, but are worth more power points as the moons progress. You're going to start to build a larger deck of cards from all the magic schools. During the study phase, you can actually discard a card from your hand that you don't want anymore, and you can just discard it into the associated discard pile. So there is a built-in culling mechanic that is so important to many deck builders. So if there's a card that is no longer helping you, that you feel that you no longer need for your strategy, you can ditch it and don't have to worry about it any longer. So Black Rose Wars is just that. It is a war. It is a game of arena combat with deck building, miniatures, action programming. The artwork on this game is absolutely breathtaking. Component quality is outstanding. If this looks or sounds like a game that you're interested in, take a look at the description below for a link to their Kickstarter page, and definitely go check it out. This has been Derek with the Board Game Spotlight, and this has been your overview of Black Rose Wars.